So in life, everyone's always going to face problems, right? But there are two different types of problems. One of them is good and one of them is bad. Let me explain quickly. So a problem is either acute, as in it's temporary, something to be solved, like almost like a puzzle, or it's chronic. It's something which lasts, it stays with you, it causes problems throughout your life. So acute problems are usually a sign of progress. If you're trying to run a marathon and you come across a problem of, oh, actually, I'm not improving as much as I thought when I'm doing this thing, you then find a way to solve the problem. And you go, okay, I'm going to try this new style of training. Instead of training really hard 5 times a week, I'm going to train slightly easier on 3 of these days to give myself a bit more time to recover. And then that solves the problem. It shows that you're progressing, that you are getting better, and then you're closer to achieving your goal, right? These chronic problems are things which just stick with you. And no matter what you do, it seems like they're just like nothing you do can get rid of them. This is things like depression. These are things like anger, this chronic anger which people face. These are things like are being unable to focus. That sort of thing. These things which always bug you. Not getting good enough sleep, money problems, they're almost like encompass you, and you kind of forget that they're problems that can be solved. So why does that happen? Why do these problems go from being acute temporary problems into being these massive life problems which really challenge you? I think the issue, after thinking about it for a while, is because the negative feedback loop of fixing problems breaks for this problem in one way or another. And there's two different ways this can happen. But first, a negative feedback loop is a type of system where a negative signal comes in and then it causes a change of behavior until the negative signal stops coming in. So you can think of like if you put your hand on something hot, the signal comes in, which is pain, and it tells you to take your hand away. Right? The pain causes a response which then stops the pain. And this works for all sorts of problems. Any problem is some sort of pain in your life, and it's a sign that something needs to change. And then once you change this, whenever you figure out what it is and you change it, the problem should go away, the pain should stop, and then that's that problem solved. So how can this happen? How does the negative feedback loop get broken? I think there's two ways it happens. The first one is because you sort of like ignore the signal or you numb it. So think about like you put your hand on something hot, but your hand was completely numb. Like you couldn't feel anything in your hand. The problem's still there. Your hand is burning off, but you don't feel the signal there. So this normally takes sort of the role of distraction or actual like physical numbing using drugs. So you can think of basically any addiction that people have that they use as a coping mechanism. So whether that's alcohol or drugs or scrolling on social media or pornography or gambling, whatever it is used as a coping mechanism to not have to deal with the problem. So think about a problem like this. You hate your life. That's a pretty big problem. That's a pretty terrible problem. Your life is terrible and you hate it. So you can either actually accept that and try different things until you actually work out at least some part of what is causing you to hate your life, or you can ignore it and use drugs to sort of numb the pain out. Now, this is an issue, and it should be kind of obvious why. Because whilst you ignore a problem, it gets worse. Think you've been shot. You've got a gunshot wound right there. And instead of going and receiving medical attention, fixing the problem, you're just going to take painkillers so you don't feel the pain. You can do that for a while, but give it enough time and it's going to get infected. And once it gets infected, it's going to be even more painful. So you get the choice again, are you going to go and seek some sort of medical attention? Or are you going to just up your drugs? Like, just take a higher dose. If you take a higher dose of painkillers, maybe you won't feel the pain. But eventually the painkillers wear off and the pain gets worse. And then it gets so unbearable, you need the drug just to survive. You need the distraction not to just like end up killing yourself because it's so unbearable what your life has become. So it's very hard for you once you've already got to this position to then say, okay, I'm going to take the drug away slowly and I'm actually going to do something to actually help. It's very hard, it's very painful, but it's because you've been avoiding this pain that it's stacked up so high. It's almost like a pain debt. It's like you've been building up this pain and you've been able to find a way to numb it out or ignore it, and eventually it's so much that you have to start working it down and fixing it. But it's very difficult once you get to this point, so the best thing is just not to do that. The other way that people break the feedback loop, that would have to be through negative beliefs or sort of limiting beliefs, if that makes any sense. So if you get shot and you believe that there is no way to fix the problem, that there is no medical solution that can fix it whatsoever, you're not going to bother getting medical help. And you're just going to try and like tough it out as much as you can. But the problem there is because you've decided this thing which isn't true, this maladaptive belief, and now it is causing you to suffer unnecessarily. It's causing this chronic issue. If you got rid of the belief and you realized, okay, there is something that can be done about it, I can go to the hospital, they can clean it out, they can take the bullet out, they can patch me up, you'd come to realize that this is a solvable problem and you'd stop wallowing in your agony and you'd do something about it, right? So those are the two ways that things get sort of messed up when it comes to feedback loops. So sometimes these limiting beliefs are things which are absolutely crazy. Imagine this person who's been shot thinks that all doctors in the world are trying to poison them. For you and me, that's easy to say that's irrational. And we love nothing more than pointing out other people's irrational beliefs. We love it. It's so fun. But we're really bad at pointing them out for ourselves because we believe them. And what do you mean that's irrational? But think about the amount of people who have beliefs like this, and it's terrible for them. Something like people who believe obesity is entirely genetic, and then they lose 30 years of their life to this completely curable disease. Same with diabetes type 2. Sure, there are genetic components, but if you believe it's entirely genetic, you'll do nothing to actually help fix the problem. All these things which can help you are going to be completely unavailable to you, if that makes sense. There are people who right now are broke because they think that money is evil. Again, it's just a belief which keeps you in the same painful state. And it's tragic, but it's the world we live in. So many people have these kind of beliefs, and it just tears them apart. And you probably do too. You just don't realize it. You're not aware enough to know what these issues are. So, just to recap here, with negative feedback loops, let's go back to that sort of idea of you touch something hot. Let's say you put your hand in boiling water, like a jug of boiling water. You've got three options here. The first is to either numb it or tough it out and just say, oh, my hand is in hot water, it hurts. I will find a way to not focus on this. Basically pretend the problem isn't there. The second thing is you create some sort of belief that the problem is unsolvable. You say, oh, my hand's stuck in there. There's nothing I can do to move my hand out. Even though it's silly, obviously, you just take your hand out. If you genuinely believe that there is no way to remove your hand from there, you won't do it. You'll just leave it there until your nerves burn off. And then the third option is how a negative feedback loop should actually work. You just take your hand out. You feel pain, you then perform an action which alleviates that pain. You take your hand out. So after breaking it down like that, hopefully it seems quite simple. So why is this such an issue within people's life? Well, it is more complex than I've made it out to be. In life, not all pain is a sign of something negative, but sometimes it is actually a sign of something completely neutral or something entirely positive. If you feel pain after you've just worked out in the gym, or you feel it like a day or two after, that's a good thing. It means that you've trained hard and that you're stimulating the muscle to grow. Or maybe you have done a lot of cycling and your lungs hurt and it shows that you're getting better. It's a good thing. Or if you have a partner and you can't see them for an extended period of time, you're going to feel sad and alone and you're going to miss them. And that's not a bad thing. It just shows that you love them. It's just natural. So yeah, bottom line, growth is painful. Bad things are painful and you should avoid them, but growth is also painful and you should seek it. How do we reconcile these two opposite facts? The truth is this: you have to be able to create your own judgment and discernment of different types of pain and what they mean. You have to be able to create meaning from these pains, and sort of misascribing the meaning can cause you to stick to the painful things which cause suffering and avoid the painful things which cause growth and happiness. So, unfortunately, there's not much I can do here to teach you what these sort of good pains are and these negative pains are. Obviously, I'm working it out myself as I go through life, and you're going to have to go through life and work it out yourself as well. But there are a couple from my own experience that I can point out and say, hey, these are pain signals, which means something has to change. You are doing something wrong or you believe something wrong. And the reason that's useful is as soon as you know that there's an actual problem to be solved there, that you are doing something wrong and that is what is causing this symptom, you can actually start looking and addressing the problem. So these are things which people always put chronic beforehand. You can basically think of it like that. Anything which is a chronic problem is almost always a solvable problem. The specific root cause that once found and once dealt with is going to make your life a whole lot better, and it's going to remove this problem for you. Think about something like chronic depression. Either there is some sort of belief that you are holding, which is causing you to be depressed, some sort of belief that isn't connected to reality, if that makes sense, some sort of incorrect belief, or it's some sort of action you're taking. Maybe you're doing things every day which are making you absolutely miserable, and then you're using whatever you can to sort of numb or ignore it, or you believe that it's not possible to change this. And of course you're going to be depressed, but as soon as you can find whatever action it is or belief you hold which is causing this, you can actually solve it. Very solvable. Same with something like chronic anger. This also comes from incorrect beliefs, you know. If you don't think that traffic ought to exist, and you go and drive your car, and then you end up bumper to bumper in traffic, you're going to be enraged. Because, firstly, not only did you not expect it, you do not believe that it should have any right to exist. But reality doesn't care what you think, right? So traffic is going to exist regardless of whether you want it to exist or not. So the solution here is sort of almost like extreme pragmatism, as in the fact you must accept your limitations and the limitations of the world, or it's going to enrage you, it's going to wind you up. But as soon as you can accept it and say, hey, traffic exists, at certain points, I won't expect it and I will run into traffic, and that's fine. All of a sudden, traffic doesn't make you angry anymore. And obviously, this is just a small example, traffic. That's not really anyone's problem. But if you apply this to every single thing which makes you angry, it's if you manage to accept these things, you know, the chronic anger does actually subside. Another similar one is loneliness. If you're lonely, either one, you believe that no one wants to be your friend and that no one likes you, so that's a negative belief which is holding you back. Two, you don't have enough friends, so you need to go and take the actions which are going to allow you to have better friends. Three, you're not close enough with your current friends, so either you need to go back to two and make some new friends, or open yourself up, actually be vulnerable about these people so that you can connect to them. Or four, maybe there's some sort of issue with self-esteem or your own relationship with yourself. So that's where you need to do some sort of inner work and actually help yourself to love yourself, if that makes sense. Like, see there, it is just some sort of root cause causing a pain, loneliness, which then needs, if you're going to fix anything, to cause some sort of action, which is hopefully going to have some sort of effect on the root cause. And if it doesn't, you need to try a new action and try a new action. So if you take anything away from this, I want it to be this. Although these root causes can be hard to find, they're findable and they're solvable. And these issues which you think are just you think you are just a depressed person, you identify as an angry person, they're solvable problems. They're just problems to be solved, not burdens to be carried. So take a look at these things which you do really find trouble you in life and say, hey, is the negative feedback loop actually working? Is this pain causing me to go out and make my life better? Or am I numbing it with some type of addiction or action that makes the pain go away temporarily but doesn't really fix it? Or do I have some sort of belief that the pain will always be around and there's nothing I can do to change it? Cool, okay, I have one of those. How are we going to change this? If you stop numbing it, then you'll actually be able to see, okay, this is the issue. Let's take action. If you see that the problem is solvable and you get rid of that limiting belief, you'll say, okay, it's solvable. Now, how do we solve it? Let's look a little deeper. Let's take action. This is what this is about. It's about taking action to change these problems within your life. And if you can do that, you're sorted. Like, these chronic problems, which affect 99.9% of people, won't be your problem. And at that point, not only does your life become far more enjoyable because you're dealing with these acute problems instead, which are kind of like fun puzzles, but also you'll get ahead of so many people. If you're trying to be the best in anything, right? Like, let's say you were Usain Bolt and you were trying to be the best runner in the world, and there was someone else who was just as talented as you, just as skilled as you, had the perfect genetics as you, literally like a carbon copy of you, but they were depressed, you would obviously win because their energy, which is going towards suppressing their depression, and the energy which is stolen by their depression, is not something you suffer with. You don't have your energy stolen like that. You're completely free. You can just spend your energy solving the acute problems of how do I run faster, and you're just going to excel. So I'll say this part again one more time. These are problems to be solved, not burdens to be carried.